Hello, we are live again for episode number 5, clearly the holiday episode of Codingscape's LinkedIn Live series. We are get it, Jimmy. We are super excited to be here. Codingscape has been doing these LinkedIn Live sessions to bring real conversations to you all about real technology problems. We like to say that we are delivering support for modern application development, also known as MAD skills for MAD projects. And these LinkedIn Live series episodes are really featuring the humans behind the machines at Codingscape. We like to say this because we are featuring our expertise in the field, expert problem solving, and real solutions for real tech problems. So I am very happy to be here, very honored to be here hosting this session with two of my favorite go-tos for all things AI and tech solutions, our CTO and Senior Machine Learning Engineer. Jimmy, would you like to introduce yourself, please, and tell us a little bit about Codingscape?
Yeah, thanks, Lauren. I have been a programmer since I was probably 12 or 13. I didn't know it was a job I could actually have until I was about 21. And at that point, I was all in. I thought programming was just something that people did for fun. Uh, and since then, I've worked in a lot of e-commerce and enterprise web applications. I really wanted to be a game developer, but it wasn't going to pay the bills. And I feel fortunate to have started my career right kind of at the beginning of this real boom in turning all of our systems in the world into web-based systems. So it's been really fun. Part of that journey is I've worked with a lot of really great software engineers, product managers, designers, and about 6 years ago, we started Codingscape so that we could create a consulting company that brought all those great people together and let us deliver software for new clients and also people that we'd worked for in the past. And so that's what Codingscape is. A fun fact for this conversation is one of my first programming jobs was actually in an AI lab working with hardware back before the DARPA autonomous vehicle challenge was solved. So I actually got to write Lisp that ran on a robot and communicated over network connections. So that's my old man story.
Amazing. Zach, can you reintroduce yourself?
Sure. It's great to be back again. So I'm Zach Burkett. I'm a senior machine learning engineer at Codingscape. I do wear a lot of hats here, but I tend to run or consult with a lot of our machine learning programs and client projects on a diverse set of clients and internally.
Excellent. I've had the pleasure of working with both of you, learning from both of you, and being on different sides of the house, so to speak, as both a client and as a team member. I know some of the tech challenges that I've come to you all with, but Jimmy, from a CTO perspective, can you tell us a little bit about some trends right now, real problems that clients are coming to us with related to machine learning and AI in general?
Yeah, great question, Lauren. I think the biggest trend that we're seeing at a higher level is business owners and decision makers not being sure exactly how AI should fit into the current Gen AI should fit into their strategy or their product or their workflow, and but also feeling like they're missing out if they haven't incorporated it in some way. And if they have a tech team or an IT team, then they're usually already working hard on like the priorities and roadmap for the business, and so it takes a very skilled project manager to be able to start slipping in research and thinking about how to leverage AI in a way that creates value. So part of, like, at the top level, part of what we've been doing and working with is helping these business leaders with proofs of concept or to validate ideas they have and turn them around and share them with their engineering team or IT departments so that they can get inspired, and think differently about AI instead of, I think a lot of developers are a little pessimistic about it when it comes to like working with it day to day. And so that's the big trend we see kind of at the top level. And I think Zach can probably talk a little more about like what we're seeing like in the trenches as far as implementation goes.
Yeah, nice
Yeah.
segue, Zach.
On implementation, we definitely, I mean, so first point of contact is a lot of that, trying to sort out, either ease their worries that they're not missing out or providing suggestions that this could really leverage, upgrade their business in some way. But even below that, there's some things that our clients aren't thinking about, but that we're proposing these technologies for to improve functionality, add new functionality, things like that to their core business. Um, like for example, we're working on a new search implementation for this internal application for one of our clients, and they never really suggested anything around machine learning or AI with it. But when we were sort of digging in to how this search was going to work, we sort of landed on an idea revolving around some large language models involved in it, not necessarily in a chat interface, but sort of behind the scenes. Like you don't even think about it, that it's there to really provide you with more advanced search results. Like you don't have to, type your queries as robustly. It could filter based on what it expects that you want, that sort of thing, but totally transparent. There's all sorts of things behind the scenes that, these businesses that are coming to us, they don't even realize where this technology can really improve some of their core products.
So I'm hearing improving core products. Jimmy, I'm hearing a little bit of mitigating maybe developer anxiety around using different AI tools. There's another maybe third example that I've seen with a couple of clients, and that's around the topic of modernization, and trying to, modernize something. And I'm wondering if you could both touch briefly on how AI fits into modernization plans.
Yeah. I'll start off by kind of defining modernization for the purpose of this conversation. But you know, uh, modernization is a term used currently to say, now that, as I referenced before, like we've been using web-based applications for 20 plus years, and they've been written over, various technology stacks and life cycles. And so a lot of modernization projects in the recent past were taking applications and moving them to the cloud, which is still like a big source of projects, both for us and a lot of other consulting companies. But we're also starting to see modernization look like bringing the features and UX that we're used to in all aspects of our life, like that make everything super easy to use, like context aware search, auto suggest in fields, tagging for making categories and dynamic hierarchies, all that kind of stuff. And we get to use those like on our phones, even, like it's so easy. And then you go to work and you're using like a massive old application that you basically have 100 tabs open to do everything you need to do. Modernization is also bringing the modern UX that we all are used to using to these kind of older massive applications as well. So trends that we're seeing are there. Oh, actually, can you repeat that part of the question now that I talked a lot about modernization?
Well, you defined it, and I think that's half the battle, because a lot of clients come with this big project saying we need to modernize, and they have some idea, but maybe not spelled out with some of those details. So I think that's a really good level setting. What is modern, and what does that transformation entail? But the second part of the question was, what does AI have to do with modernization, and how might that help us?
Yeah, great. This is where it gets really exciting. I think, part of one of these modernization projects is looking at the kind of history of why decisions were made, what decisions were made, and then being able to drop a roadmap from where we are to like what the end state is. Unfortunately, a lot of times, most of the time, there's no that documentation, the history, et cetera, is gone. It could have been like a key person that did a lot of work and then left the company or went off to do their own thing. And so, a lot of time can be spent trying to make sure that the documentation is written or that we understand everything. And this is where generative AI, especially LLMs, and increasingly also image generation AIs are coming in handy in being able to read a code base or read some documentation and provide some possible kind of extrapolations of like architecture, decisions, et cetera, and as well as generate charts or diagrams as well that can be used in the modernization. So it feels like a kind of like a second brain that can be dedicated to um, generating, filling the gaps of knowledge that need to be filled before one of these projects kicks off successfully.
Awesome. That's super exciting. I know for some of the folks maybe in the audience or who might listen to this later, but Zach, I'm also watching your head nod. And I know from personal experience working with you on a couple projects, this is quite relevant. So can you share, why are you nodding your head, and how does that work in your day-to-day?
Yeah. So in terms of modernization, there's one, the user end modernization, but there's also developer modernization. Like a lot of systems that businesses have, they may have been built like 10, 15 years ago, maybe even more, depending on the type of business. And technology has evolved in a it's evolved a lot since then. And so maybe your modernization effort isn't necessarily around new features or new UX and stuff. Maybe people are happy with that, but maybe you don't have a developer team that can work on this system anymore without some serious upskilling for like the course of a year or something, depending on the technology. So we've had some recent experience with this, of taking sort of a legacy application and using a lot of these tools to sort of comb through the database, or not database, the code base, and give us documentation, graphs, and dependency charts, like exactly like Jimmy was saying, to sort of wrap our head around it, and what it will take to implement the new modern version of that system, even aside from new features and things, just so that we can get it into a modern and maintainable state for developers, so that it's not like you have to hunt down the very specific, like the last COBOL developer you could find, in the world or something like that. You can,
Ooh,
you
yeah,
know,
that's a great movie. That's a great movie title. We should work on that. The
the,
Last
the
COBOL
last COBOL
Developer.
developer in the world.
Indiana Jones and the Last COBOL Developer.
I love it. We'll talk about that after. Um, but instead of finding these like very very specific developers, you can perhaps use these technologies to assess the current state of the application, build a modern version, either by hand coding or using AI technologies involved with that, to get the developer experience modernized. So now practically any developer can work on it, and it's just much easier. It's more cost effective. You don't have to hire new developers. Maybe you hired a bunch of young bucks out of school and they're all gung ho about Node and React or something, but the app is, I don't know, some old Java application or something that just isn't in their wheelhouse, and nobody's really maintaining that anymore. There's a lot of opportunities there, but it all comes around like analyzing, getting the information you need out of something that maybe not is not super accessible.
Yeah, this is really interesting because it's different from the conversation around how do you leverage AI or develop AI features, right? That customers might use. This is really about frameworks and tools and assistance to make the work, to facilitate the work for developers and get development to a modern, whether it's pace or understanding or documenting it or just making it more accessible, which is such an interesting nuance because I think a lot of conversation has been around what AI feature are we going to deliver and how are we going to promote that?
Yeah, Zach actually said something. Not actually. You did say something really interesting, which we might have missed here until we turn on the captions. Which is he said developer experience, and that's a capital D and a capital E there. Like developer experience is a entire field and discipline that is related to not just providing your technology team with the right tools and setup to be efficient, but also how you, as a business, tie ROI back to the investment in your development team. And so that is, also a place where using these generative AI tools to increase developer experience and to help track the results of it, we're seeing a lot of work there.
The ROI of the developer experience. That's the next movie or documentary, rather. Awesome. Zach, I know you have lots of experience and demos related to some of this work. And so I'm wondering if you have anything available to show us to maybe talk through how we might do some of this in real life.
Yeah, I can share my screen and we can do a little bit of a live demo. Say the prayers or chants to make live demos go good. However,
The real test.
The demo
right.
gods smile upon you, hopefully.
All right. Okay. Let me make this bigger. So let's put ourselves in the shoes of a developer working on a new project. So I have this empty Python file here called MNIST. For those that don't know, MNIST is a machine learning data set that is a bunch of pictures of handwritten digits and like numerical digits 0 through 9. And this is sort of like the hello world of machine learning, where hello world is you write a program that prints out hello world. It's usually the first thing that you do when you're learning, for the first time or a new language, just to get that hello world test. So I like to think of MNIST as this sort of hello world of machine learning. And we're actually going to use AI to completely build this a training loop to train a model to learn how to recognize these characters. And we're going to train it live, and it should be very quick. So training loops can be very long on large models, but this should only take a few seconds to train a model. So I have GitHub Copilot set up. So this is something that I love for the developer experience. There's a lot of people using another editor these days called Cursor, but I'm still stuck with VS Code. I like it. And Copilot has been progressing really well. So let's say I'm going to set up this new project. I can just do Command I and say, write a simple script, simple training and test script for MNIST in PyTorch. So PyTorch is a machine learning library that's commonly used. Use a convolutional neural net. This is a type of architecture of neural networks for machine learning. Use a convolutional neural net and the Atom optimizer. Atom and optimizers are sort of the thing that actually updates your neural networks during training. So this is just specifying what I want. I want a training script. I want the test script to sort of validate things. We want it to run on the MNIST dataset, which I already have downloaded using PyTorch. I've specified what type of architecture I want to use, the convolutional neural network, and what specific optimizer I want to use. We press enter. Look at that. That looks pretty good. So this is our model architecture right here. I'm just going to quickly go through, make sure that everything's good before we move ahead. I probably would have picked a different loss, but that's all right.
While Zach is doing that, I'll just call out here that I think, there are questions or anxiety about whether AI is going to take all of our jobs as developers. And Zach is showing in both the pre-step, the prompt and the output, why we're still going to have jobs, which is you have to know the right question to ask and you have to be able to verify the output afterwards. And whether you are a chef prompting for a recipe or developer prompting for code, like you have to be the expert in what is going to come out of it so that you know that you're not about to poison a room full of people or spend $2 million training something that doesn't work.
So this looks pretty good. And just to verify, we're going to be able to run this .py. So this is going to run an actual training loop on this model to see if we can actually recognize these digits. Ooh. I'm going to actually, I'll let this run and just sort of simplify the process here by removing some of these dropout sets complaining about. We don't really need them. I don't need to go into the details of it right now. You probably do want them in a real model, but we don't need them here. Okay, that looks pretty good. So this ran. It trained a model. We got a 99% accuracy on recognizing digits. But now let's say that I was just given this already, like this code. And what I really want to do is, so I specified that we were going to use the Atom optimizer for this. What I would like to possibly try multiple different optimizers to see what works best for this sort of problem. So instead of just prompting the whole code gen, we can actually use this sort of edit with Copilot feature to sort of interact with our code base and have it edit inline. So let's say I would like to run the test and, or let's just, the train and test loop with a few different optimizers to test their effect on the model. Perhaps we can start with Atom, which is the one that we're already using, stochastic gradient descent, which is sort of how this, it's sort of like the oldest optimizer in a certain way, and just another one, let's say RMS prop, something like that. So it's going to think and generate. And this is a way that if you already know what you want to do, you can very quickly get the code spit out for it. And you can even see what, how it changed the code. So it removed all this section and added this section. So now we can see that it actually has this little dictionary of optimizers that we're going to use, both Atom, stochastic gradient descent, and RMS prop. It's added a loop around the main code here so that it actually instantiates this optimizer here based on each of them. So let's just do a quick look through, make sure nothing else got wild. Looks good. So let's just click accept. Oops. And save this. And we can run this again now. So now it's doing a test training loop with the Atom optimizer. So it's going to run through 5 epochs. And epoch is basically just one whole pass through the data set. So we're running through the entire data set 5 times for each of these. So we should see a pretty similar result for this one. We got 98.89. It's within, the standard deviance of what we would probably expect. There's sort of a stochasticity, a randomness with this, so they're not going to be the exact same every time. So now it's running with stochastic gradient descent. You can see this one's a lot lower, and that's to be expected. It's not as an advanced optimizer, so that's something we would expect. And we'll see with RMS prop as well. You see, that was pretty good too, 98.92%, which is about what we expected. So what we were able to do is take a code base that was already existing and make some modifications in line, with a carefully crafted prompt of knowing what exactly we want to do. But maybe we don't know exactly where it needs to go, but it will show us where, what it removed and what it put in, and then you can review. and then we can test. So now we just upgraded this simple script to actually testing several different optimizers on this same model. Could pause there. I got one more little thing I would like to do, but I don't know if there's anything we want to chat about there.
Well, maybe run through your next activity just so we can have the complete set, and then we can dig into some questions.
So this is, having it print out is great, but like, it's okay. It's not great. Like, it's just, saying, yeah, the accuracy is this. We ran through all the epochs. We use this optimizer, blah, blah, blah. But we're not really able to like compare too much data except for the last validation. And also, this is a model that's looking at images and predicting a number from it. We're not seeing anything. We can't see the images, that sort of stuff. So what I would really like to do is have it plot out, charts during the training. How good is it doing? And then also see the pictures and what labels the model gave to those pictures. But maybe I'm not familiar with this code base, and I'm a little nervous about that, or just want to be more efficient with how I'm spending my time. So we could use these same tools to get that accomplished.
I love that application piece. And speaking of the developer experience, what is it that you might be feeling or sensing as you're approaching this? There's actually a comment in the chat from Thomas Cole, I believe, TJ. As a developer, I've tried a few LLM tools for coding and found almost all of them actively get in my way when it comes to programming and slow me down. What sort of suggestions do you have for exploring these sort of tools, or what sort of things should I look into to adjust my experience with them?
So first off is using a really good model, I think is a good one. I don't know what kind of model they're using. In this case, I'm using O1 Mini for this, which I find to be pretty good at these sort of things. Another model like Claude Sonnet or just O1 in general are quite good at coding. But they really need the context. Like, they need good context. You need to provide sort of intelligent prompts, like very deliberate prompts, like that what you want, how it should look, that sort of thing. And there's one way before these tools started getting integrated into these developer environments. I'm sure a lot of us would take a snippet of our code, go to like ChatGPT, post it, and then go back and forth. I don't find that very effective at all. And sometimes it can be to tell you things about code. But I just don't find it very, very useful. In these sorts of cases where we have it integrated into the development environment and it can edit the code in line and tell you what it did, you can much more easily do a back and forth with it if you need, or just more quickly review what has been changed and just click accept. There is sort of an art to it instead of a science, of just kind of getting a feel of how to use these tools. Um, so I would say, just as a suggestion, try maybe either this sort of setup or the cursor editor, um, and kind of just start to get a feel for inline code editing and code suggestions. You don't have to do big things, but you know maybe there's just like a test file. Like, we write a lot of tests for code to validate it that it works, and maybe exactly what all the tests are going to look like, but it's just going to be a slog writing all of them. It's going to take a long time because there's just so many tests, but they're so simple. You still have to write the code for it. Maybe just start there to generate your test files and then quickly review and edit them a little bit. Could save you a lot of time in that point, especially like in my experience. Sometimes the test files end up being a lot longer than the actual file they're testing. It can just be very menial and stuff. Start with the menial stuff and then kind of build your way up to building the main application with it. So let's start prompting this for my next step. So I want to actually get a visualization of what these are doing, what's happening during training, and be able to compare these different versions of this training loop a bit better. And I want to see the pictures and what the model is actually predicting. So I would like to log batch loss to TensorBoard during training. I would also like to see images from the test set in a grid with their predicted labels in TensorBoard as well. Perhaps we can use matplotlib and subplots for that. Even get a little specific, like maybe I know exactly what I want to do here, just to say like I want to use matplotlib and save that to the TensorBoard. TensorBoard's a nice utility for machine learning to log all these sorts of things, but it could be anything, whatever technologies you want to use for this sort of thing. Even just saving pictures and saving them to disk and being able to look it up. So let's run that and see what it will give me. Let it do its edits. And you can actually see it's doing it sort of in real time, editing. All right, so let's review. That looks pretty good, but there's actually, I do want to make some changes to perhaps make this a little bit better. Let's grab this, put this in here. We actually want to say this is dot dash runs slash op name. Put this in the loop as well. And double check the image stuff. All right, that looks okay. And just put that. Actually, nope, we don't want that. There we go. Okay, so I believe this should be good now. So if we run this now again, take just a few moments to run through our training loop again. I'll close this window so we have a little bit more space for the next part. Something broke here. The demo gods were not happy with me today, apparently. Well, we can fix that in a second.
While you're fixing that, I think it was a really interesting, while you were, the question from TJ was really interesting, and it reminded me of an internal project that another engineer worked on here, which is effectively, we've been building some plugins. I think if you check out Codingscape on Figma, you'll see that we've got a couple of Figma plugins up that use Gen AI. And we also have a VS Code plugin that we use internally and we'll probably publish as well. And they're small, simple things, but they help with this kind of modernization approach we talked about before and developer experience. But the plugin we have, one of the functions that it does in VS Code is you can generate comments for a file, and it will create a copy of the file with the comments in there, which is pretty useful. But we took it a step further, and you can kind of specify the verbosity of how eloquent you want the comments to be, whether you want it to be at the line level, which if you're trying to understand like a pretty complicated, maybe piece of legacy software would be helpful, or if you are just trying to clean things up for whoever's coming along after you, like you can also specify file level, module level, function level, etc. And so these are good examples of how we think about using these tools. We're not just plugging code into OpenAI or Copilot. We're actually thinking about like, hey, how do we build something? And those Figma plugins we have we can link to them in the show notes because we're a podcast. Include like, hey, like take a Figma file and turn it into code, which is something that I think there's a lot of tools out there, but we also are able to generate the alt text for accessibility for images and things, and insert that right into the Figma as well, so that when when somebody picks an image and adds it to a Figma, it streamlines that accessibility pipeline.
For sure. So I did a fix, but it looked like it actually was just printing out the wrong numbers and actually worked. So now we can actually see some of the images from this. So this is what the data set looks like. And these are the predictions from the model that we just trained on each of these optimizers. So we could see it correctly predicted 7, 2, 1, so on and so forth. And it looks like they all did a pretty good job despite their, subtle differences. And perhaps just as the last one, I did run another query to update it. So let's just see if it actually fixed anything. But that's basically, this is a large part of my workflows, a large part of workflows for other developers in sort of their modernization efforts, and just improving how you're spending your time, more bang for the buck with a lot of these things. Yeah, it seemed to fix it. So we can see that we're getting the accuracy 98.89%.
All done live in a demo in less than 30 minutes. I think that's pretty compelling.
And we used AI to make AI well, which is kind of funny.
So meta.
All right, don't forget to submit your pull request before the end of the day, Zach.
All right, I'll work on that, Jimmy.
Cool. Lauren, I think you had a couple of questions as well.
I did. I was wondering, what about, for a client that's I think there's still some hesitation around privacy and data. And so when a client or an organization might be concerned about their code being exposed, in some of these tools, what's both of your informed response to what about data privacy and what about my code privacy?
Yeah, those are great questions and valid concerns. And I think it comes down to understanding two things, like if you're an organization and you have a code base effectively, understanding what portion of that is probably commodity in the sense that it might be open source code already or something that anybody could write, and what part of that code base are trade secrets that you would not want shared in any way. The trade secret portion is probably less than most people think, but understanding like how to kind of separate those out is difficult. So the best thing to do if you have concerns about that as an organization, like what we will do is help you evaluate the licenses for the various models. Zachary already talked about the importance of picking the right model, but you can for some of the large language model providers, there's licenses that effectively promise, although I don't know if they guarantee, promise that your data doesn't leave the container that you're effectively running it in. You can do that on Azure and AWS. You could also run your own open source model as well, and that is another way that you can protect your privacy. And some of these developer tools that we've been looking at can hook up to those models as well.
Yeah, pretty much nail on the head, or hammer on the nail, however that goes. Yeah, there's even using, I haven't looked too in depth on the licensing, like specifically on ChatGPT Enterprise, but as far as I understand, they do data security on that, where they don't train on it, it's not sold, it's not visible to their developers or other folks in house. But that's something you would want to consider to look into to make sure that the details really match what you need. But yeah, local models that you can set up yourself through the open source, that community is exploding with some seriously impressive models. Yeah, or just running a managed service on the cloud.
And for any organizations, clients, companies that are thinking about modernization, do you have some recommendations for tools? Excuse me.
There are a lot of tools out there, and actually, this week and last week are pretty exciting on that space, because there's was it the 12 days of OpenAI live streams are going on right now, and they're announcing quite a lot of very exciting tools that can be used for this. The one that's really coming to mind, aside from they've released their O model or O1 model outside of preview now, it's faster and more intelligent. That's just really capable generalist for a lot of tasks. But what I was really excited about, I think it was yesterday, is the Canvas tool, which allows you to do interactive editing, both in text documents and in code. That sort of thing can really help with the modernization, both on, reading through the code base, providing suggestions for updates, but also writing the documentation for it and helping you walk through the documentation. Or maybe you give it documentation and some additional context about what you're doing, and it can, sort of nitpick what you've written and say, like, this isn't super clear, like, from what I understand on the context, like, it's not really captured in this document. Um, those sorts of tools can be quite helpful. Aside from that, using tools like I just showed, Copilot, it was working in one file, but it can work with a lot of files. And you can even just ask it to, describe what this application does. List out the features bullet pointed. Hey, Mr. AI, I want to rewrite this application. I have no idea what it does. Tell me all the important things about it, and get stuff out like that.
Yeah, along those lines, I've been using a non-AI tool called Mermaid charts for like flow charts and like that you can define with a kind of a simple markdown type, or I guess a YAML type language, and that's super helpful for being able to create documentation that is um, versionable and configurable. And I decided to paste a flowchart, just a general flowchart, into Claude as an image, and asked it to produce the Mermaid configuration for that for me, and it did a great job.
We've actually been using Mermaid on a client with text descriptions, basically, of what we've come up with as we've gone through the process of analyzing the existing applications. We've been writing them down into a document, basically toss it into an LLM, and it can spit out that markdown for a flowchart.
Yeah, it's really, I think this goes back to the is AI going to take our jobs? And I think that a lot of times, like, that kind of documentation gets skipped in the need to hit deadlines. And the fact that we're able to now generate that kind of documentation from our just work artifacts, whether it's code or or one pagers, etc., brings brings the ability to put a bigger or more efficient development team on problems, and know that, like, you're not going to spend months onboarding somebody or trying to get them up to speed, but they can become efficient and productive much more quickly.
Jimmy, you just inspired a new role: forensic machine learning engineer. For any company that's going through that modernization, or maybe a startup who just scaled too quickly or got too busy or had to hit deadlines and just missed these critical steps, being able to leverage these tools in order to get that documentation so that the next teams, the remaining group, the remainder of modernization can happen at scale, more efficiently, more quickly, access to all the insights. So rich.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you, Lauren. And I would say that yeah, these techniques that we're using, we love to do it. And so, like, if anybody listening to this is resonating with the problems we're talking about or wants to know more, please get in touch. We'd love to work with you.
You heard it directly from the CTO at CodingScape. Awesome. Thomas Cole has another question. Do you have any suggestions for locally runnable open source models? I'd prefer a model running locally. That way I could still use the tool without internet access if need be.
There's quite a few. Probably for like coding tasks. I'm a big fan of the Llama series of models. Those are from Meta, and they've been open weight. There's open weights for them, so you can download them and run them. The other one would probably be like the Qwen series of models, Qwen Coder, QWEN. That's another open source effort that comes in a variety of model sizes that you can use. The main consideration, though, is they are quite compute intensive and memory intensive to run. So you do have to have a certain level of hardware to be able to run these things. Apple has gotten really good at running these sort of models locally because of their newer devices using like Apple Silicon and the M series of chips. The memory intensive thing cannot be overlooked, not even just the compute intensity. And these devices have like a unified sort of memory architecture that allows these models to use a lot of memory while still being accelerated. Otherwise, it's pretty common to use like an NVIDIA GPU to run these things. That's what I was running that earlier test on through a separate box I have next to me that I connect to locally. You could do things like that. But if you want to do some of your own research as well outside of those, there's a sort of a machine learning and AI ecosystem called Hugging Face, like the Hugging Face emoji, that you could just go to the models tab and you could see thousands of models that have been made by the open source community, and you can start to poke through there and find something that works for you. But I'd probably say something like Llama or Qwen would be good for a lot of coding tasks.
Anything else to add there, Jimmy?
I guess this is along the lines of the M chip comment is if you need a low cost way to start running these models, the Mac Minis are stunningly affordable and capable at running these models.
I want one so bad, or like 5.
Yeah, you go hard.
Awesome. Well, in the spirit of the holidays and gift giving, I feel like there were so many gems and gifts in this particular episode. Cheat codes, recommendations, tons of tools that you all shared to help really improve the developer experience, which is my connection back to the humans behind the machines, which I think we all agree and feel really strongly about. It's one of the reasons why I love working with CodingScape and certainly chatting with the two of you. But before we wrap up, I like to do our lightning round. And so I have a couple of quick questions for both of you. In addition to what you've already shared, what is your top AI cheat code at work? Whether it's a tool or your favorite thing to do that just helps you work better in your day-to-day. It doesn't have to be necessarily about code per se, but just anything that you use in your day-to-day that's your favorite cheat code.
I think, aside from the sort of Copilot tooling I've shown off, I use that, for my coding tasks. But there's a lot of stuff outside of that, just like maybe getting up to speed with the current technology, or reading, data from a chart, or producing charts or stuff. I just love using ChatGPT for that sort of stuff. Like I almost use it as like a tutor for a lot of things. When it first came out, it was probably a little suspect to use that for that sort of thing. But I feel like I learn stuff every day from that that I can apply to where maybe someone says something like an acronym, or starts talking about technology or sort of a business structure that I'm not familiar with, right over to ChatGPT and get the gist of it, and then maybe dive deeper and deeper.
I think mine, I'm going to steal it from a previous attendee on LinkedIn Live, Will, who, I think came up with a pretty novel usage. I've been, having these kind of conversations with all the developers at Codingscape, and encouraged Will to try a project in a language he didn't know, using like a Copilot assistant. And he came up with a pretty novel approach. It's not novel, but I hadn't heard of it yet. And I think he intuited on his own, which is, he, instead of asking the Copilot to write code for him, he was pasting sample code of the language he was trying to learn into ChatGPT, and asking it for the prompt that created that sample code to help him understand how to prompt correctly in that language. And I thought that was a really clever thing to do, because prompts are the new they're the new cheat codes.
Those are two major gems: prompts as cheat codes, and getting up to speed faster, I think, right, Zach? Just really prepping for meetings, new frameworks, or synthesizing an image, just really being able to leverage the tools as assistants to help us be more informed and better prepared. Love those two. Next question: what's your favorite AI show off? When you've got friends or family coming around for the holidays, what is the favorite thing you like to show them to wow them?
So I've done this for some years now with so whenever I go visit my father, we're both really big into aviation, and since vision capabilities have started becoming more accessible, we've always tried this experiment of getting a picture of like an airplane dash with there's like gauges and stuff all around, and get it to explain what it sees, and like not just like what gauges there are, but the values of it. And every time it doesn't get it right, but it's been getting better and better and better. And I'm very excited to go back for the holidays to show him, because I've run a test and I got it 100% right this time. So I think he'll be very excited about that. It's a little party trick that we have between us.
I love that. That's a really good party trick, especially with someone that's familiar with the other dashboard, right? Or the dash. Yeah, I love that. Jimmy, what's your party trick?
Well, for the last maybe 6 or 7 months, I've been using the ohwow.ai app to create birthday or celebration images of like my family and friends. So if it's your birthday that you just got, then you'll have to, we can put a link in the chat here, but you can basically use it to upload a picture of somebody and create like pictures of them doing dangerous things, swimming with sharks, or blowing out candles with monsters, or all kinds of fun things. And so I'll create a bunch of those and then send like the best one to them privately, and claim it's my favorite picture of them, and see if I can gaslight them into thinking it actually happened. Oh, Lauren, you might be muted.
I'm back. I said that's actually my favorite party trick too. Not surprised. And a shout out to Chris Linland, a friend of Codingscape, and a note of gratitude. He actually helped mentor me in my very early discovery of visual AI tooling, and was super supportive. And I love to return that favor by purchasing some of the images on his tool for the same purpose. When my 21-year-old had his birthday, I made a collection of really fun 21-year-old appropriate images for him, and it's been my party trick for sure. This is great. Well, lots of gifts for folks in the show notes for this episode. There are so many gems. Always love chatting with the two of you. Big thank you for your time. it's a real treat to actually have a CTO on the call. We often talk about you, Jimmy, and say that for anyone who's out there interested in looking at either how to work with outsourced teams, or understanding more of our guides and frameworks, or even doing a tech teardown, a discovery map, or as you mentioned, really understanding the quality or the state of their code, we often refer to you and say you can hear it straight from him, but here you are on the show today. So we like to show those real humans behind the machines. Thank you so much for joining us. Please do go and check out codingscape.com, where you can find all of these case studies, reports, guides, and more. And you can always speak to a human about more work to be done. We're currently offering continued technical audits, roadmaps, and reviews, as always, and helping you to get your tech stack, code, and development capabilities up to where you need them to be. Until next time, we'll see you. Have fun with AI.
Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren and Zachary. You guys are awesome.
You're awesome.